more, but we're going to go through, we're going to spend maybe 4 or 5 weeks. We're not going to drag it on. You could spend a year going through some concepts that is presented in this little book, but we're not going to do that. I'd like to just maybe take a few weeks, but I really want you to be thinking, and under that theme, let your mind, like mine, be thinking, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? That's going to be the question that's just going to kind of come in and out of this book. And so, again, back in January of 2011, and I know, again, that's 12 years ago, but how many of you does that feel like it was about 3 weeks ago? Right? For some of us, it does. The book then was what came out, and nobody really had heard of David Platt. He's the author of the book, and it was the first Sunday of the new year, just like today. I believe it fell on a second instead of the first that year. And for many, many, many years, we would begin each year studying the life of Jesus. And Frank would start it off with a sermon series of some sort, and we would do it in all of our Bible classes. We had a unified, or whatever the word would be, curriculum that every class would follow back then. And so we all, in some form or fashion, would be looking to study the life of Jesus. And so I thought, man, I want to do it. I want to do it again. I want to go through some things. And listen, I'm not saying this is like David Platt, chapter 2, verse 12. These are not the words of Jesus, but this book is packed with Scripture. And so we'll take those Scriptures, thoughts that he presents, and we'll try to answer that question. What does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? So here's the thing. I need to get you guys just to shout some stuff out. When you think of, again, not Jesus, we're going to go away from Jesus just for a second. Just when you hear the word follower, what do you think of? If you are a follower, or if you follow something, or someone follows you, or just what comes to mind when you hear follower?
Doing the same thing.
Yeah, doing the same thing. What else? Supporting. Somebody says sheep. Oh, we got the animal comparison in here from Jim. Yeah, sheep. What else? If follower, when you hear following or follower, what comes to mind?
Taking orders.
Taking orders. Oh, follow instructions. Emulate, regularly connect with them. Where's my social media people? Walking in the light. Interested in what they're doing. Okay. Admire. Is that what you said? Admire them. Well, because y'all know how I am, I'm all over the Facebook and the Instagram and the Snapchat. I was thinking about social media, because don't you have followers on those platforms? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Are y'all all on the www, World Wide Web? When you think about followers on social media, I am enamored with. I'm not really enamored with Facebook because of posting and pictures. And if I ever do more than like 2 things in 3 weeks, somebody usually checks on me to make sure I'm okay. But this is what amazes me: is the company, is the concept, somebody came up with this idea, and how that has saturated the globe. That's what is amazing to me. And again, there's a little bit of a connection there when you think about followers and the billions of people, and what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus. There's a little bit of a tie-in. Close to 3 billion, this is crazy, people, 2.95 billion people of the third quarter of this year are on Facebook. Now think about that. Compared to the world's population, India leads all countries with the most users. I guess you think about that because I guess they've got the most population. But 71% of the U.S. population use it. Now that includes kids. I mean, that's everybody. 239 million people in our country use it. 1.62 billion people visit Facebook every day. That's close to a quarter of the world's population. Now, y'all think about that. Put that in perspective. A quarter of the world's population uses it. Did I say that? Yeah, every day. Not once a month, every day. Use it. 84% of millennials are active users. That's the largest group that use it. And the average Facebook user has about 338 friends, followers. And I throw all that out because sometimes I hear people say, well, making people followers of Jesus is not practical. Sharing Jesus throughout the world is not practical. Well, Mark Zuckerberg figured it out, right? I mean, I've been to Africa. I've been to remote places. I've been to places in Antigua, and people have these. And they have internet. I don't know why that's not even my notes. I'm getting off track. Well, okay, here's what I want you to switch gears now. Switch gears, and it could be some of the same answers. When you think about being a follower of Jesus, what comes to mind? Huh? Worship. What else? When you think about being a follower of Jesus, what comes to mind? Worship. Love. Obedience. Gratitude. Grace. Sacrifice. A follower of Jesus. Disciple, selflessness. What else? Humble. When you think about being a follower of Jesus, what comes to mind? Y'all got a bunch of them. Here's what I need you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Baxter.
Doing what he did.
Doing what he did. Yeah. That's a good one to lead into because that's kind of what we're going to talk about. When Platt wrote this book, he had two questions on page 3, at the top of page 3, that he asked himself. Okay, and you can ask yourself these two questions if you want to. This is kind of what he based what he was about to write on. He asked himself these two questions. Am I going to believe Jesus? Okay, meaning, well, I embrace Jesus even though he said radical things. Is that, would y'all agree with that? In the New Testament, based on where he was and in that setting and the Roman rule and the way the relationship between the Jews and the Gentiles, and so am I going to believe him was the first question. The second question that he asked himself is, am I going to obey Jesus? Are you going to hear the words, or am I going to hear the words and walk away? Will I be content for less than anything? Will I be content for anything less than a radical obedience? So again, you got the two questions. Again, you don't have to do any of this. All right, this is just going to be a series for 4 or 5 weeks to try to get us to think. All right, I know that's dangerous, but what's what we're going to do? Am I going to believe Jesus? Am I going to obey Jesus? All right, so here's where we're going to go through the first week of February probably. We're going to do a 4 to 5 week study, and we're going to have some tough questions. All right, none of it is designed to make you feel bad about yourself, bad about your family, bad about our church. But what it is designed to do is to get us to think, to study deeper, and to pray more. Is that okay? Are those 3 things okay? Think, study deeper, and pray more. It's okay to ask questions, right? And study. So here's one other thing that you have to understand, because I didn't understand this when I read this 12 years ago. I understand it a little better now. How important is perspective as you study? Study the Bible, study a book like this. Because what I mean is, it's your life experiences. Sometimes we're tempted to compare ourselves to other people. We're tempted to compare ourselves to other churches. But at the heart of this book, what it is, it's a struggle for an American Christian and what Jesus describes in the New Testament, and then how those two things align. Are you with me? All right. And again, I'm going to say one more time. I'm not touting this up. This is not the Sermon on the Mount. This is a book written by a guy. We're just going to take some concepts from it and see where it goes. Platt the guy that wrote the book 12 years ago, you got to understand, 12 years ago, he writes this at a crazy time in his life. He's at a crossroads. Any of you been at a crossroads in your life to make a decision? He's about to go to work at this huge church, 4,000 member, very affluent, influential church in Birmingham, Alabama. All right? He's got like 97 degrees. I don't mean temperature, like he's got like he went to school a lot. All right? And he's really smart, so he's going to go work at this big church, but he's just coming back from a 3-week deal in Asia where he's been in house churches where it's illegal to talk about Jesus and study the Bible and to be a Christian. Are you beginning to see where that perspective might affect somebody that writes a book like this? I'm in a place where 30 or 40 people are crowded in a little tiny 14 by 14 room with a single light bulb with a pull chain hanging from the center of the room, and there's a guard at the door listening to make sure nobody comes in and catches them that they're studying the Bible. And now he's about to go be the senior pastor at a church of 4,000 people in Birmingham, a huge multi-million-dollar campus. I just want you to grasp this background if you choose to read this and understand his perspective. You get why somebody might be at a conflict or at a crossroads. He's very complimentary of his church family. He isn't dogging them. But he's saying, I'm struggling because this is where I just was, and now here's where I am today. Are you getting I'm just trying to get you to get the picture. Have any of you been like that? I've been trying to think for myself how something might affect it. I know I look around the room, I see people in here that have traveled to other countries and have worshiped in other countries, and then you return, and how hard is it to separate that? I got Rebecca sitting here on the front row. American church, different than our church in Australia. It doesn't make one right or wrong, but it's different, right? I can see Jeremy walked in over here, and Robin. He could get up here and testify for the next 30 minutes, exactly experience what David Platt's experienced in this book. But then you come back. This is where we live. We live here. Well, you don't, but sorry. But we live here. And maybe you go on a 1 week or 2 week or a month, and then it begins to cause you to have a conflict in your brain. And I'm not saying what we're going to talk about it. Sometimes you read a book like this and you start trying to do apples to apples comparisons, and you can't do that. But here's a question that I've been wrestling with for the last 2 weeks as I've gone back and reread this book. Is it harder to be a Christ follower in the USA versus a country where Christianity is illegal? And don't answer it real quick, because you need to think about it for a minute. Is it harder to be a Christian or a Christ follower here in the United States, in Florence, Alabama, in 2023, or a country where Christianity is illegal? See, the quick response would be, oh, it's harder to persecute you, and they could arrest you and take you to jail. But if you get to know people and see the dedication and the fervor of those that are seeking Christ in the countries where Christianity is illegal, it could be, right? We're just trying to think and study a little bit, that it's harder to be a Christian here. Could be, right? Don't say anything. I just want to think about it. So, here's what I want us to do for the next 20 minutes. We're trying to think about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Let's go over to Matthew chapter 4, and let's look at some of his first followers. Matthew chapter 4, okay? We're going to look at Matthew 4 and Luke 5, make a couple of points, and get out of here. Everybody okay? Everybody awake? New Year's, Happy New Year. Watched ball games, went to weddings, stayed out too late. It's the one night of the year that some people who don't stay up past 9:30 stays up past 9:30. All right? glad you're here. We're going to read some verses. Now, the 12 disciples, they come from the region of Galilee. They don't come from Jerusalem or Athens or Rome. It may be not, if, man, you're thinking, I'm going to get me 12 people that are we're going to turn the world upside down, right? I'm going to get rabbis and scribes and Pharisees and priests. And instead, Jesus gets a zealot, a tax collector, and a bunch of fishermen. I mean, it's the ragtagginest looking bunch of folks. And you would have never thought. In Acts 17:6, it says these ordinary men are going to turn the world upside down. So, Matthew 4, verse 18. Here we go. Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee. He saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake because they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once, did y'all catch that right there? After several meetings and times to study together and contemplating and talking over with their friends, now what does it say? At once, they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two brothers, James, son of Zebedee, Zebedee and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father, Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed them. I'm sure Dad liked that with the family business. He probably invested in them and taught them everything he knew, and he was going to turn over the Zebedee and son family fishing business. Where'd they go? Why are they going over there to follow that guy? So think about this for a minute in that little story. Here's what they left. They left behind their boats. Platt in the book says they're leaving behind their careers. And you're like, wait a minute, Mark, are you trying to imply that? Listen, I'm just talking. All right? We're just going to talk for the next few weeks. Don't get mad. These guys left behind their boats, which is their careers. They left behind their nets, which could represent their possessions. And they left their dad in the boat, which could represent their family and their friends. And they went and followed Jesus. Now, when I asked earlier what it means to be a follower of Jesus, none of y'all said that I had to leave my career, my possessions, or my family and my friends. Because that's not applicable in 2023, right? That was just those guys. See, you're with me. You're laughing. I can see you're with me right there. See, ultimately, here's what happened. Jesus calls these guys to abandon themselves. So, how about this? To be a follower of Jesus, we should abandon ourselves. Is that an okay statement? Okay, like 3 people agree with me. All right, so I guess that is not a true statement. These guys left certainty for uncertainty. They left safety for danger. They left self-preservation for self-denunciation. And so let's put yourself in the boat. You're in the boat. How would you have responded? Again, I was trying to get you to think, because here's the thing. Either we say we are followers of Jesus now, or he is calling us to be followers of Jesus. He's calling us to be his follower, and we have to decide how we're going to answer that question. Yes, I am, but I've got some conditions. Here's my conditions. Here's my list. Or, yes, I am, whatever that means. Right? I don't know, Tim. I don't know, man. This could have been a mistake. There's going to be like 4 people here next week if we really dig into this. Because here's what I want you to do. Now, we're going to look over at Luke's account just real quick. Luke 5, real quick. We're not going to read a bunch of verses. But again, Luke's account gives a little more detail of this story, because it's the whole cast your nets on the earth. Remember Hannah? Remember singing this? So, did you do this? Hannah, come on, do this. Okay. Cast your nets on the earth. It's that story. The one that when you were a little kid and Jesus was... Oh, come on. Are y'all awake? Did any of y'all go to church when you were a kid? Jesus was walking on, didn't everybody do this? Something, some version? Whatever. So, in Luke 5, it's the same story, but it gives us more details. You know, they've come back, they haven't caught any fish. Everybody on the shore is probably making fun of them. Ha ha, you fishermen, you don't know how to fish. And they can't sell the stuff, they can't make any money. And Jesus here comes back to him in Luke 5, and he says, let's go back out and go fishing. And they've been fishing all night. I mean, think about it. If you're tired today from staying out all night, probably somebody today is going to take a nap or you're going to go to bed early tonight. The last thing you want to do when you're tired is to go do some more of what you were doing that made you tired. Right? And so Jesus says, let's go out and fish. Let's go cast the nets out in some deeper waters and let's see what's going to happen. Peter agrees to go. You know, even though these guys are professional fishermen and they're like, what does this guy know about fishing? But it just seems like when Jesus is there with them, things are always just a little different. Oh, wait a minute. What does that mean? Have you noticed if you're a follower of Jesus, if we let Jesus into our lives, into what we're doing, aren't things going to be just a little different? And so Jesus is with them. They go out again. They go out in the deep water. They let down their nets. If it was a movie, there'd be a dramatic pause, and they would zoom in on those nets probably as they sank down into the water. There'd be some kind of cool rock and roll song from the 80s playing in the background. You know there would be, Julianne, some song from the 80s playing in the soundtrack. And then the nets they come up and they're so full of fish and they break. Here's the thing, guys. When I read the story about Jesus calling these guys and they leave everything, and I can only speak for me, but then I begin to think, I think Jesus may be wanting me to go into some deeper waters. It's like, yeah, I'm a follower of Jesus. Woo! This shallow end is great. Got the waters about to my knees. That's about where I'm comfortable. Man, I am following Jesus. Well, I'm going to go down this slope toward the deep end a little bit. I'm a short fella, so the water goes up pretty quick. And Jesus starts calling you deep water, and you're thinking, well, maybe I need my floaties, or maybe I need an inner tube, or I'm 53 years old. How long have I been a follower of Jesus? And he may be wanting me to get in the deep water. That's the kind of challenge you're going to get. Don't read this book. I'm telling you, I'm warning you, don't read it if you don't want to be challenged, okay? Or break your glasses. Don't read it. When we did this study 12 years ago, I offered a money-back guarantee. I wasn't as brave in 2000. Maybe I should. Money-back guarantee. I'm going to do it. If you read this book and you don't feel somewhat challenged by it, we'll give you your $10 back. I want the book back, though. I'm going to clean it up and try to return it to Amazon. No, we offered a money-back guarantee, and nobody brought it back because it'll just challenge you. Jesus is calling us into the deeper waters. These guys, these no-name, nobody people are going to turn the world upside down. Now, let me ask you a question. Can't folks right here in Florence, Alabama do that again? Can't somebody in Australia do that again? Turn the world upside down for Jesus. Oh, yeah, it sounds good, Mark, and we talk about it today when we're at Wendy's, but we don't really. I'm asking us just to think about it. Do we mean it? Do we know it? Do we understand? So one more quick verse to think. We got Jesus calling the disciples in Matthew 4 and in Luke 5. And then in Luke 6, there's one more interesting thing. In Luke 6, around verse 11-ish, 12, it says Jesus goes into a mountainside to pray. He spent the night praying. I like that because here's what I think. The morning comes and he calls the 12, Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew. There they all are. He calls them. I like that it talks about prayer. That's one of the things that I wanted us to make sure we got in here today. If we're talking about what it means to be a follower of Jesus, we need to make sure for 2023 that we emphasize prayer. Jesus prays. He went to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. Jesus, it was important enough to him that he spent the entire night praying to God. So I wanted to throw that out there because here's what I think. He's Jesus because I think he already knew he was going to call. I think he wasn't calling to proof his list. I mean, he wasn't praying to proof his list. I think he was praying for them because he knew what was about to happen. He knew what they were about to go through. And so then I begin to think about John 17, and he did the same thing for us. Remember the prayer in John 17? He's praying again at night, and he prays for all the believers that he's praying for us. He prayed the same prayer for me and you, a similar prayer, because he knew it's not easy. It's not just easy being a follower of Jesus, right? We're conflicted, we're torn, we're tempted. We got things in the world that we think are way more than important, and somewhere in there we try to fit in being a follower. So Jesus was praying for you too, just like he prayed for these guys. All right, so you got it. Matthew 4, Luke 5, Luke 6, the followers of Jesus. So, we're going to wrap this thing up. What is Jesus calling you to do? These are questions for you guys. Is he calling you to something greater? These 12 guys had probably been doing some good stuff. They were probably hard workers. They had good families. They paid their taxes. They worshiped whatever way they were supposed to worship back then. But Jesus comes along and says, I'm calling you to something greater. So here's how we're going to end this. We're going to end this with a case study. All right? Rebecca, you can't answer this. You'd be cheating if you did it. So I want you to think through this pretend example. Your family, think of whoever you want to let that be, husband, kids, spouse, wife. I don't know if you want to take your parents with you or a sister or brother, whoever. Your family is going to be dropped into a city or country. You don't know anybody. It's just your family. All right? Y'all got the example? You're going to be a missionary. Y'all ready? You thinking through my example? Your full-time job is to reflect Jesus, follow his teaching, and make disciples. Y'all got it? You got your job? I need you to think about this because sometime between now and next Sunday, I want some of you to go into a little bit deeper with this, and I'm going to text you and email you, and I'm going to try to get you to give me a little more information. What are you going to do? What do you do? Full-time job, reflect Jesus, follow his teaching, and make disciples. You don't have a building, don't go start a building campaign. Okay? You just got there. You just got enough money to live on. You and your family. So the regular stuff that we do that we sometimes think is really important, you don't have it. I say I'm cheating. It's like Survivor. I'm just giving you like some Flint and a little cup of rice. And we're just dropping you out in the middle. We're dropping you in, and you're like, well, I need to know what. Some of you are like, oh, I need to know what country, and I need to know what my monthly budget is. Oh, come on, Enneagram 1s. Y'all just stop for a second. I'm just dropping you in a country with your family. You've got enough income coming in from somewhere just to support the necessities of life. But your job is to reflect Jesus, follow his teaching, and make disciples. So what are you going to do? See, the methods that we think that you're like, well, the first thing I'm going to do is I do this and I need to get this kind of ministry. Maybe you can't. Maybe you can. It's kind of like, back during, y'all remember that COVID stuff? Y'all remember anything about that? I talk like it's been like 18 years ago. The regular stuff got canceled, right? Did that mean that we weren't Christ followers anymore? We didn't put a hold on being, well, we've got COVID, so we can't follow Jesus right now. It's kind of like that. You're put in a place. You've got to reflect Jesus, follow his teaching, and make this. Let me share something, and I don't say this critically because we've taken almost 350 of our members, off and on over the last 12 years, have gone on a family mission trip. Off and on, not all at once, different groups of people, but 350 different individuals have gone. So I feel like I have a little bit of information that I can give you a case study on that because I've been the one that's taken them. Here's the thing that I hear almost every time. I feel like I can serve better when I'm there. I've got less distractions. I've heard that. I'm not making fun of anybody that said that. I'm just telling you that I've heard it. Man, that week I feel like I am serving, I'm on fire. I've got less distraction. And so then here's what I begin to think as I begin to hear that, and I'm the same way. I begin to think, well, maybe, Mark, you don't need as many distractions. Because, let me say this, I'm going to cheat and go back to our example. I've said your job, I've made you a full-time missionary, I've dropped your family into a country, is to reflect Jesus, follow his teaching, make disciples. Isn't that our job now? You've not been dropped anywhere anymore. You're in Florence. And you're at your job, and you're with your family, and you're at your church, and you're with your people that you interact with maybe at the coffee shop, or the person you interact with at the post office. Our job is to reflect Jesus, follow his teaching, and make disciples. Is that right? Did I get that wrong? David, is that it? Did I get it? Okay, David said it was it. He knows. See, I guess what I'm trying to get you to do is to think in terms, you were thinking of, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go this, I'm going to start this Bible study, and however you began to think and process being a missionary dropped in a country where you didn't know anybody, whatever you were thinking, we need to just do it here. Right? Wait, but no. You said that was my job, and I see. Then we're going to get convoluted. Because here's the thing I need you to do if you won't do anything else is on page 12 and 13 in this book is a very crazy, gut-punching thing because he talks about how we began to redefine Christianity in the way we want it to be. We define Jesus in the way we want him to be for us. I'm just going to read it to you because I sent the email and the pages came out sideways. Technology. I don't know how to do I can't even attach a PDF to it. That's terrible. That's awful. They should have a class for people like me. All right, so we're going to end with this, and we're going to get out of here because I've just probably made enough of you mad or you're asleep or whatever. So we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of the eager followers of Jesus in the first century. That's kind of what we've been talking about today. I'm trying to get you to think about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. We've talked about those guys, those early guys. What if I had been the potential disciple being told to drop my nets? What if you were the man who Jesus said not to even say goodbye to his... Wait a minute, I can't follow Jesus. I've got a luncheon thing I've got to get to with my... What if we were told to hate our families and give everything we had to follow Jesus? And see, already just that, you lose... Half the people have already left you there. This is where we come face to face with a dangerous reality. We do have to give up everything we have to follow Jesus. We do have to love him in a way that makes our closest relationships in the world look like hate. It's entirely possible that he will tell us to sell everything we have and give to the poor. No, not any of y'all. No, that's just make-up stuff there. We don't want to believe it because we're afraid. Here's where he goes. Here's what I was trying to say a while ago, and I butchered it. So we rationalize these passages. That's what we'll do. Tim's in my office, and he said this, and I look over Ryan and say, well, no, what Tim really meant. Here's what Tim really meant. I have to interpret Tim. Tim needs an interpreter. And so that's what Platt's saying. This is what these passages, Jesus really meant this. I mean, Jesus wouldn't tell us not to bury our father or say goodbye to our family. He didn't literally mean to sell all we have and give it to the poor. What Jesus really meant was, and this is where we stop, and we're going to pick back up with this next week because it's going to lead us into some other stuff. He says, you're redefining Christianity. Well, I think what Jesus meant when he speaks in Matthew and Luke is what he meant, right? Maybe. I don't know, Rebecca. I think it's just me and you talking today. We are giving in to the dangerous temptation to take the Jesus of the Bible and twist him into a version of a Jesus that we're more comfortable with. It's our buddy Jesus, our friend Jesus, that we can just do what we want and how we want to do it and when we want to do it. He don't care. A nice middle-class American Jesus. A Jesus who doesn't mind materialism and would never give us a call to give everything away. A Jesus who wouldn't expect us to forsake our closest relationships so that he receives all our affection. A Jesus who's fine with nominal devotion, that doesn't infringe on our comforts because, after all, he loves us just how we are. And see, for most people, they want to go, I want to read that mess. I want to find me some good verses, some feel-good verses, not taking up crosses, not Luke 9:23s. I just want John 3:16. And that's the kind of weird, crazy kind of questions we're going to get to in the next few weeks, okay? All right? I'll see 2 of you, maybe 1 of you next Sunday. You're dismissed.